Trigger words never meant much to me until my first experience with roommates. Oh my goodness. I hated my roommates. Except for a few like you, Johnny Boy. Johnny Boy will do anything I ask him to do. When I first got to college, I had a bad experience with a roommate. It was awful initially. Oh, you, Jason. You didn't actually hate your roommates. You just disliked them somewhat, like mildly, maybe. Yes, I did. My college roommate was terribly initially. But as it turned out, he was not bad at all. He became one of my best friends until this day. My painful and awful experience with roommates were in camp. Teen summer camp. We had different houses at the camp, and each house had many rooms or apartments. One or two children shared some rooms, and some were private rooms or apartments. After I got my assigned house and apartment, I quickly moved in. When I opened the front door to my assigned apartment, this is what I saw. Keep in mind how excited I was about going to summer camp and all the initial buildup that has gone into the preparations and getting ready to have my parents drive me for hours to get to the camp. I had to pack practically all my belongings into my suitcase and kiss my sister Ernesto and my dog Shadow goodbye before being out on my own for at least a couple of months. As I approached and opened the door to my room where I would be living for the next couple of months, I saw somebody sleeping on a couch, snoring. He was wearing some light-colored junk food employee's uniform. The TV was loud, and a picture of a professional wrestler was hanging on the wall. The kitchen sink and the table were full of dirty dishes. Extensive and oversized trash cans overflowing with smelly trash and garbage were sitting on top of the table. Inside the fridge near the kitchen, there was an empty carton of sugary soft drinks. So are a half-empty ketchup bottle and a large pack of hot dogs. Where did all these freaking dishes come from anyway? Fun fact, believe it or not, those hot dogs were still in the same position in the fridge when I left a few months later. But in my humble opinion, the worst thing that I noticed was about 500,000 sports cards, baseball cards, lying all over the floor. I'm not kidding you, this actually happened. Here is my proof. Okay, I was lucky. I got a single room because I was one of the first people to sign up for the camp, and I was assigned a room earlier. Besides, I brought a lot of stuff to work on and things to keep me busy, like my drawing materials, and I would probably feel uncomfortable if I had to share a room with someone, and that person had to deal with all my junk all over the place. My stuff is not junk, but some people might think otherwise. Sorry, I got a little carried away. And also, more importantly, I wanted to be alone. Just me, myself, and I. I'm so glad because that room was so small. That room could hardly fit me. Honestly, I could stand in that room in the middle of it and hold my hands out and touch every corner of the walls just by standing in the middle and without moving my feet. Yes, I could feel the room's walls and all four corners by standing in the middle. Maybe it was my long arms, who knows. I don't mind the room's smallness as long as it's in a single room. But what made a living in that house so horrible, even though I was in a private room, were the roommates. At first, I didn't realize that these roommates, boys, also got their own private rooms. And to me, that means that they too were introverts, the social outfits and awkward people who like to keep to themselves. Some people say it's a good thing, but I beg to differ because they are wrong. On the first night when I finally settled and calmed down, I unpacked all my stuff, including my drawing stuff, and I set them up, then turned on my computer, and the screen was all black. Nothing turned on. I did all I could to fix it, but nothing happened. Eventually, after many failed attempts, I contacted the computer manufacturer for help. Luckily, they got it working, but during that whole period, while the computer was being fixed, I would probably say that it was the worst week of my young life. I'm literally being serious right now. My love for the artwork and occasionally dabbling as a YouTube creator kept me sane that first awful early nights of being myself without my sister, dog, and parents. When my computer broke, I cried like a baby, guys. And the worst part, I could not eat, even though I was hungry. I was that angry and sad. Frankly, I hit rock bottom. I remember pretty literally killing time watching some old TV shows and playing around watching video games just to make the time go by. On television, if you would believe that. But quickly, after I got back my computer, it was game on. I was able to get things done. But anyway, let us go back to the roommates I started talking about in this video. Speaking of awful roommates, the first person I would like to talk about is Tyler. Even though I hate my roommates, I like Tyler. He was the only one I told about myself, my hobby, and what I do for pastime, like creating YouTube videos. Tyler wore a funny-looking hat with the word "I obey" written in the front of it. He also did something that I'm not too crazy about. He likes to vape and calls everybody dude. Confession, guys, I like Tyler because he does the dishes. That was my #1 reason. Plus, he was not like the other guys because he did the dishes. That is why. In a house where everybody makes a mess and never bothers to clean them, he and I were the only two who did the dishes. He and I would not have become friends in any normal circumstances, but he was the cool one, given all that happened in that house. Hello, Tyler. I have not forgotten about you. I miss you. The other day, I looked at some posts on the internet about different cultural trends and saw something that reminded me of Mark. Yes, that scumbag Mark. No, I'm not making this up. His real name was Mark, the cultural trend Mark. I hated him. Mark was the roommate who knew how to make a mess, but does not know how to clean after himself. He would not clean the dishes. He would cook his favorite dish, ramen noodles, with the microwave and leave all sorts of grease and soggy looking mess inside the microwave. And when I tried to use the microwave, my dish would be soaked with greasy and messy crap he left all over the microwave ovens. And another thing that drives me crazy about this guy is his TV watching habits. Whether on the TV or on his laptop, this guy watches one of those Japanese cartoons without headphones, disturbing everybody. I think those Japanese cartoons are called anime. They sound terrible because I do not speak or understand Japanese. The one word I understood was sayonara, and once I heard that, I said, "Goodbye forever, Mark." But I don't think he heard me. My saving grace, or what I learned, was that if I go to bed before his anime watching schedule, I slept through it. I do not understand. Why do you tell him to turn it down a little? I did too! I went to his room on one occasion because I had had enough. I said, "Hey buddy, turn that crap down so that I can get some sleep." And he did, for that one night. After that night, he did not stop, but he was mindful of my concerns. He mainly stayed in his room doing his stuff, playing video games and whatnot. I spent most of my time working on my artwork and my drawings in my room. Other than the microwave mess issue, he and I managed to get along. That night. That one night. The very next night... But he wasn't too bad. He would spend most of his time inside his room playing video games, and I would spend most of my time in my room drawing. So, except for the microwave messy stuff, we didn't get in each other's way too often. Guys, this is a funny story. One day, I was shooting a YouTube video when I crumbled something that made a funny noise, and Mark walked in and started looking at me funny. He looked like he was saying something, and I looked back at him and said, "Don't say a word." And he turned around and he walked away. Now, about the roommate that I hated the most. I don't want to say his name, so I'll call him Magnus. The boy wonder, or Magnus, was the first roommate I saw when I came to the boarding house. He was the person sleeping and snoring on the couch when I first came in, and he is the sports card guy, the one who has 1.5 million baseball cards littered all over the house. Or was it basketball cards? I don't remember. I don't collect something that I cannot play with, but this guy has these many cards stacked and has never touched them for the whole time I was there. What is the point of collecting them if you can't play with them? If I want to spend money on a card, I would rather spend it on a card that I can play with my friend. That is just me. Yeah, cards like Domino or Magic the Gathering. or something that makes sense. Yes, Magnus was the worst of a bunch of bad roommates. He leaves empty bottles of soft drinks all over the house, snores when he sleeps, farts a lot, and refuses to do dishes. Instead, he complains that somebody else did not wash the dishes. So, when I had enough of Magnus and his mess, I decided that I should buy myself disposable eatingware. Paper plates for everyone. And can you guess what the almighty Magnus did? He took my paper dishes to a party and left them there. And he did not even ask my permission to take them. You might think that farting, snoring, and leaving dirty dishes is the worst Magnus did, but imagine bringing a dog into the cramped house and refusing to take care of it. His excuse was that his ex-girlfriend did not want to keep the dog. Can you believe that? Imagine this poor dog always in his kennel, even at night. No love is shown to him. Nobody plays with Snoop. The dog's name was Snoop. So one night I felt so bad for the dog, and I asked Magnus if Snoop could stay with me in my room. Booyah! From that day on, unfortunately, I became the dog's caretaker. Snoop sleeps in my room all the time, and I became the dog's walker and caretaker. As time went on, Magnus would call the dog, Snoop, Snoop, Snoop! But Snoop refused to go to him. You know dogs, once they like you, it's hard to change their minds. Snoop had decided that I am his favorite person, and he just follows me around, everywhere. One morning, Magnus came to me and said, "Hey Jason, would you like to keep Snoop?" "What do you mean, keep Snoop?" I asked. "Okay, forever. I was going to get rid of the dog," he said, "so you can keep him if you want." That same day, in the evening, Magnus moved out of the house and took all the toiletries, including a bunch of toilet paper. I love dogs, so I did not mind very much, but I could not keep the dog in this cramped space, not to mention that I was too busy to properly care for the dog. Besides, I'm not even sure the authorities would allow a dog in the house if they found out. So I asked my family members if anybody wanted to keep the dog, and my grandmother recommended one of her friends who wanted a dog. So I dropped Snoop off at her house, and that was the last time I saw that dog. The last roommate was the guy called Mr. Electric Brush. He was never home except at night, when he brushed his teeth with his electric brush. That thing makes the most annoying sound. The thing would go non-stop. So annoying. And I would say quietly, get a life. That was it, guys. My roommate's nightmare. College is full of learning experiences, and academics are just the beginning. When we go to school, we learn a lot about socialization, how to interact with others, and even conflict resolution. We also learn how to live with folks who are different from us. Our first roommate is always a great learning experience. We do not always get to choose the first roommate, or the second, or the third. That is a good thing, because it enables us to figure out how to deal with situations on our own. It helps us to develop our own skill sets. When my parents delivered me to my dorm room, my roommate had already been settled in and was out. I noticed that he had chosen his bed already. I was happy that he had left me the bed by the window, as I like to sleep with the window open and get the fresh air. I noticed that his stuff had been tossed to the side of his room. After my parents had helped me settle in, they took me out to dinner. At dinner, my mom and dad told me how proud they were of me. My sister Ernesto wanted to know if she could come and visit. We discussed how exciting this was going to be for me. Then we returned to the dorm, and after lots of hugging, and I love yous, and we are going to miss you, and still more hugs, my parents and Ernesto headed home. I waited for a little while. I wanted to meet my roommate. I set up my favorite surfing photos of my family and me on my desk. They were my favorite memories, and I like having them to look at while working at my desk. After an hour, I finally went to bed. I have an early class the next day. I wanted to be fresh and awake on my first day. I figured maybe he was just with his family and would probably come back in the morning. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of someone rummaging around. I opened my eyes and discovered a dude stumbling around the room. I turned on the light, and he flinched the way a vampire would from sunlight. "Man, that's bright," he slurred. "Sorry," I said, wondering why I was apologizing, when he was the one who woke me up. I wasn't sure what was going on. "Yeah," he said, laughing goofily. "Just got in." "I'm Jason," I said. "I think you must be my roommate." "Hey," the dude said. "I'm Frank. Nice to meet you." Wow, I'm beat. And with that, he slumped into his bed. Okay, I thought as I turned out the light. I rolled over and closed my eyes. I guess I would get to know Frank better tomorrow. Oh well, we have plenty of time. Just as I was falling asleep, Frank began snoring, loudly. Not wanting to be rude, I tried to ignore it. Needless to say, I did not sleep well that night. I considered finding another roommate, or moving back home. When my alarm went off the next morning, I dragged myself out of bed, got dressed, and trudged to class. I left Frank snoring away. Even after drinking 3 cups of coffee, I was still yawning my way through the day. I felt annoyed because I wasn't fresh and alert for any of my classes as I had planned. After my day was over, I returned to my room to put my stuff down and see if Frank wanted to join me at the commissary for dinner. Frank was not there. His laundry was in a pile on his bed. I went to dinner myself and found my friend Cheyenne sitting at a table eating dinner. I was happy to see a familiar face. "Hey, Shay," Cheyenne greeted me smiling. "How do you like living on campus? How's your roommate? You look beat. Have you been working too hard already?" Cheyenne was going to be a journalist, and she loved to practice rapid-fire questions on her friends, including me. "Hey there, Cheyenne," I said. "It is taking some getting used to, I think." "Oh?" Cheyenne asked. "What's up?" "I am beat. I didn't get much sleep last night," I explained. "Why not?" "My roommate returned really late last night, or early this morning, and promptly crashed in his bed and began to snore, loudly." "So, no early-stage bromance?" Cheyenne laughed. "I don't think so," I said. "I haven't gotten to know Frank yet, because he is never around." "Maybe you should try to figure out when he is going to be in and talk to him then," Cheyenne suggested. "It would be a pain to have to find another room or roommate, and then getting another person who acts the same way. A lot of people get carried away with the freedom of being away from home. Maybe that's it." "Yeah, that would suck. I don't want to be a jerk or to think Frank's a jerk." "You have to get to know him and lay down some ground rules," Cheyenne explained. "I don't want to come off as whiny," I said. "I don't know anything about Frank. I don't want to offend him. I mean, it's only the first day of classes." "I don't think it's coming off as whiny when you are trying to advocate for yourself," Cheyenne said. "It's kind of inconsiderate of him to go out and get toasted the night before classes begin and keep you awake with his snoring, but you need to talk to him, otherwise he won't." I agreed. I decided to wait and see what Frank would be like before I started to advocate for myself. When I returned to my dorm room, Frank was not there. I worked on my readings for the next day of classes, and when I finished with those, I went to bed. Sometime in the middle of the night, or the early morning, I awoke to the sound of Frank stumbling in again. I heard him flop into his bed. I didn't turn on the light or say anything. I didn't want to make a fuss. I focused on trying to sleep. And then he began to snore again. The next morning I got up, went to the coffee shop, ordered an extra large latte, and went to class. At lunch, I decided to check in with Frank instead of going to the commissary. I stopped at a sub shop and purchased a giant hoagie. Frank was still in bed when I returned to my room. He opened his eyes when he heard me come in. "Hey," Frank said. "Hi," I said. I sat down at my desk and took out my books for my afternoon class and started to eat my hoagie. "Did you sleep well?" I asked as I munched on my hoagie. "Like a baby," Frank said. "I'm lucky I have late classes." "You are," I said. "My classes start early and go on till just before dinner." "That's a long day," Frank said, sitting up and eyeing my hoagie. "The only downside to sleeping in is missing breakfast." "That's true," I said. I offered him the other half of my hoagie. Frank accepted, thanking me. "I am beat too," I said. "Yeah, I bet you are with that schedule," Frank said. "I didn't wake you when I came in, did I? I was out with my bros getting brewskis." "Yeah, you did," I said. "I don't want to be a jerk, but can you maybe keep it down when you come in? I was dragging all day yesterday and again today." "Hey, I'm sorry about that," Frank said. I was excited to see my pals because I hadn't seen them since they graduated from my high school 2 years ago, and they have lots of parties off campus. I guess I got carried away. He laughed nervously. Yeah, I get it, I said. They sound like fun dudes, but I want to keep up my GPA, and to do that, I need to be alert in the morning. I get it, Frank said apologetically. I am really sorry about that. I didn't mean to be a jerk. I guess I should probably focus on my classes too. You're not a jerk, I said. Now I felt a little bad that I had nagged Frank. He did seem like a nice guy. I have late classes on Thursday and no classes on Friday. It's just the beginning of the week, if it's all right. Sure, dude, Frank said. I will make sure that I stay in and come back early until Thursday. And you can come out with me on Thursday or Friday. The dudes love surfing, and it looks like you've done a lot of that. I think you'll get along great with them. Sounds great, I said. Frank and I became good friends, and we stayed friends long after we were roommates. I helped him improve his surfing skills, as he had just started to learn. His friends were cool, even though they definitely partied a lot. I also helped Frank with his assignments and classes as well, which he was very grateful for, because he really wasn't, in his words, very academic. Frank sometimes even traveled with me when I went on volunteer projects in between semesters. I learned a lot about getting along with others from living with Frank and other roommates that came along later. That is an essential part of growing up and going to school. We learn how to handle potential conflicts. If I had requested another roommate, I wouldn't have made a great new friendship. If I hadn't decided to approach the annoying situation in a productive and friendly manner, I wouldn't have been able to get to know Frank and would have thought that he was an inconsiderate jerk. Frank also would not have known that he was inconsiderate. Additionally, I learned that part of being considerate to others is understanding how to express my feelings about a situation in an effective and friendly manner, rather than being aggressively confrontational. That takes empathy and a desire not to put someone else on the defensive. As an adult, I believe that if more of us took that tact, there would be less misunderstanding, and we would all get along better. Imagine that. Hey, thank you for watching. Please click on the right to subscribe if you liked the video. And please don't forget to click on the bell icon when you subscribe so that you can be notified when we upload a new video. Watch more videos on the left, including our playlist. Thank you.